Hey everyone, it's good to be back with something I would say is a worthwhile video idea that involves a suite of SIVA-themed exotic concepts for D2. This was kickstarted when I had first used Outbreak Perfected back in Forsaken, when I thought how cool it would be if the gun's nanites capabilities would be compatible with other weapons of a similar nature. I've made 4 exotic weapons and then 1 exotic armor piece for each class in the game for the suite that all follow the idea of this infected debuff that I will touch on in the legendary SIVA weapon Intrinsic perk Epidemic efficiency. And by the way, yeah, I have read through the concept images and saw all the typos I made, but I didn't care enough to go back into Photoshop and fix them because I saved them as a PNG instead of a save file. So that would have been difficult. Yeah, and that's the intro. Let's start this up. Up first, we have an intrinsic perk that would be additional to every SIVA-related legendary weapon that would be released. It's called Epidemic Efficiency, and it works very similar to Parasitism on Outbreak Perfected. Damage from weapons with this intrinsic perk deal more damage to targets under the infected debuff. The infected debuff stacks up when a target has a nanite attached to them and continues to go up as more nanites are attached. Nanites stay for 10 seconds, as similar with nanites are on Outbreak, and if no more nanites are attached in that time period, it stops the buff, so it'd have to reset it. With crit-based primary ammo weapons, 3 rapid precision hits spawn 2 SIVA nanites, and with special and heavy weapons, it is 3 hits that spawn 6 SIVA nanites, with some exceptions, like rocket launchers count as 2, because of the direct and blast damage both count as 1. Sniper, slug shotgun, and linear fusion rifle crits count as 2 hits, and a fusion rifle shot will count as 2 as long as all belts connect. This is also on every exotic SIVA weapon, but each of those has their own unique perk that goes along with Epidemic Efficiency. For Balancing Act, I think linear fusions, this is coming from post though, I think linear fusions could count for 3 per crit with the charge time just for a balance, but yeah, that's the Epidemic Efficiency intrinsic legendary perk. First exotic armor piece we have of the suite belongs to the hunters, and it's called Kovik's Infectors. They are exotic arms that use the hunter's melee to spawn nanites and have nanites buff melee damage. A normal uncharged melee sends out 3 nanites at a distance, and then it puts the target under the infected debuff depending on the amount of nanites that hit them. A charged melee sends out 6 nanites and also reloads the current weapon from reserves when the nanites connect. Melee kills release 12 nanites, and getting a kill under a target with the infected debuff attached to them spawns 15 nanites. This is part of the idea I had of having each class have their own neutral game ability work and tie in with the infected debuff and epidemic efficiency. So the hunters would be, you'd continually get additional nanites with your melee, and when you're out of ammo on one of your weapons, you use a charged melee, it'll send the nanites out, instant reload, and you can continue your nanite-based DPS. The second exotic armor piece is the Warlock's exotic boots, Splicer Savior Greaves. This exotic causes rifts that are placed by you to generate 12 SIVA nanites around you, and second off, nanites spawned by you and your allies when in a rift last an extra 3 seconds and buff the infected damage buff by 10%. Empowering rifts have the unique ability to make nanites deal 15% more damage each and last longer. The rift itself lasts longer when damage is dealt to a target under the infected debuff. Healing rifts generate an extra nanite for the wielder of this exotic exclusively every time they spawn SIVA nanites, and damage dealt to an infected target increases the rate at which guardians are healed in the rift or even Well of Radiance. The Well of Radiance, in its unique ideal world, is part empowering rift and it's part healing rift. So that would be perfect for this exotic, especially in DPS phases where, say, you don't need Lunas. You'd run this, and you'd get both the nanite buff, the extra nanites spawn because you can't increase a well. But you can increase healing. Actually, yeah, you would be able to increase healing. So yeah, it can increase healing, but it won't be able to extend its duration like Empowering Rifts can do, though. So yeah, let's get on to the Titans. The final piece of the armor is the Titan exotic helmet, Vosik's Replicator. It causes grenade damage to spawn SIVA nanites. This does include damage over time, so thermite nades would work with this, while simultaneously giving grenade energy back when you damage an infected enemy with your weapon, not with your grenade. That's the distinction I'd like to make. Grenade damage is also buffed with infected debuff while this exotic is on, so your grenades for Titans affected by the infected debuff as long as you got the exotic on. You can get your nades back constantly. After throwing a nade, getting the infected debuff on, dealing damage to that infected enemy gives you your nade back. So it all plays into the whole DPS way that the SIVA suite would work. All three of these armor pieces play towards each specific class having to use one of their 3 neutral game abilities to add to the Nanite-based damage gameplay. The differential is that each class can only have one of their abilities that actually matters towards the infected debuff with the current exotic equipped. The idea is that some players running a SIVA-based DPS team won't need an exotic that buffs supers and instead can contribute to their DPS with them spawning extra nanites to further increase the infected stacks on a boss, or just to use solo to spawn more nanites and clear rooms of adds quicker and deal with bosses much more effectively. So yeah, let's get into the 4 exotic weapons we have. Our first of 4 exotic weapons is the heavy grenade launcher called the Endemic Strand. Its sole purpose is to continue pumping waves of nanites into enemies to raise the infected debuff to higher damage debuffs, so DPS phases can be a lot more productive. It comes with the exotic perk, SIVA Pod Launcher, meaning the grenade launcher fires sticky SIVA pods that detonate under a few different circumstances, from shooting the pod with a different gun, also direct impacting the target blows it up as well, with other exceptions. This will release 10 SIVA nanites at its minimum amount when the pod is exploded. Also upon pod explosion is a disorienting effect that is emitted to the surrounding area, similar to blinding nades that will stun anything that has the capability to be blinded in the game already. It also comes with SIVA cluster rounds that makes the grenades have massively increased damage and blast radius at the cost of its reload speed. Its last unique perk is Nanite's Potency, making this weapon's damage increase with the stacks of infected on a target, and more nanites are spawned from pods with stacks of infected on an enemy. Meaning you can spawn more nanites, the more nanites that you've already spawned on a target. Like it's playing back into the spawn more nanites with this weapon. This weapon also has quick launch for its bump in handling and velocity, as well as auto-loading holster to combat its painfully low reload speed. This gun has extremely exceptional velocity and a magazine size of 4, holding a total of 12 rounds with its reserves. The second exotic we have is the Energy Sniper Rifle, Epidemic Directive 2A, that is used for both DPS situations and ad clear options similar to Outbreak Perfected's role back during the auto-loading well and rally barricade era. Its exotic intrinsic perk is Parasitic Pandemic, which makes it spawn 5 SIVA nanites upon 2 rapid precision hits, and 4 rapid precision hits reloads the sniper from its reserve and spawns an additional 2 nanites on top of the 2 crits 5. To explain this further, 2 sets of crits will spawn 5 and another 2 sets of crits will spawn 5. As long as those 2 sets of crits are close together in time without any other shot fired in between, so no misses, no body shots, it'll spawn 2 nanites on top, making the quote-unquote 4 crit combo spawn a total of 12 nanites. Getting a kill with the sniper spawns 4 nanites and a precision kill spawns 8 nanites. Its barrel perk is SIVA Forged Rifling, which increases both the weapon's effective range and its target acquisition. The sniper has the unique debuffing perk Virulent Vector that when 10 SIVA nanites from the Pandemic are attached to a target, the target will then be debuffed with Virulent Vector. Virulent Vector will increase nanite damage by 250% and also increase the affected debuff by 15% for 5 seconds for anyone using a gun having Epidemic efficiency or any SIVA-related perk. To provide a good ad clear potential, the Pandemic also has the unique trait called Transmission Rate, where 3 rapid kills cause a SIVA nanite spawned to double in amount and their damage. If a SIVA nanite gets a final blow, it will generate 4 rounds from thin air into this gun reserves. The Transmission Rate buff ends after 3 seconds after not getting a kill. Pandemic Directive 2A is very good overall stats, with it being a 90 RPM sniper with 94 range, 70 stability, 74 aim assist, a medium 40 zoom, a magazine of 8, and its total reserve capacity of 32, making it be a killer with boss DPS spawning with other nanite-based weapons. Our third of the SIVA exotic weapons is a kinetic combat bow known as Aksis's Arm. It is a very unconventional bow as it can fire more than a single arrow per draw of the bow. With its exotic intrinsic perk, SIVA Bow Strand, the bow can knock up to 5 arrows onto the bowstring, each with its own direction shown in the spread that it will fire, depending on its location. For example, the first arrow directly in the middle, will fire straight. The second arrow will be located off to the right, firing more rightward upon the draw. Each arrow will go out further from the middle, the further away it is from the first arrow. Note that this bow cannot be ADS'd when you have arrows, or even a single arrow, knocked without overdraw. This is where the first of the 2 unique trait comes in. Splicer Secrets. Splicer Secrets makes it so that this bow can be overdrawn by pressing the aim down sights button after a full draw of the arrow spread to combine all the arrows into a single arrow with one straight firing pattern, and is ADS during this time. Overdraw adds the collective arrow's damage with a 25% damage increase and spawning each nanite of every arrow knocked, doubling the nanite spawned if this hit is a precision hit. More stacks of infected caused in this mode decrease the overdraw time to a minimum of 50 milliseconds. The bow has SIVA wound string, giving it increased draw time, damage, and accuracy. Its arrow is nanite arrowheads. Each arrow fired holds a nanite that applies the infected debuff to an enemy when it is hit, as stated previously in the Splicer Secrets explanation. Its final perk is Plague Clouds, causing precision kills to form a SIVA aura that damages enemies over time. Also, this damage is affected by infected. And if Plague Clouds kills an enemy, 3 SIVA nanites will be spawned. This bow has a hefty 77 impact, 700 millisecond draw time, 98 accuracy, and an overall inventory size of 56 arrows, making it a new take on multiple arrow bows. Our final exotic weapon here is the heavy rocket launcher, Devil's Disease. The rocket is a step towards rocket general usability for both high boss DPS and ad clear, combining the two throughout its perks. Its intrinsic perk is Contagion Warheads. Contagion Warheads makes rocket fires from Devil's Disease have inherent tracking and spawn 12 SIVA nanites upon impact with any amount of targets. Also having its nanites have an extended tracking distance. The nanites don't spawn if it just hits the ground like Endemic Strand works, making target hits crucial to its identity of nanite spawning. Its magazine perk is Plague Rockets, which has its impact damage scale exceptionally higher with stacks of infected on an enemy. This also has inherent impact casing, but the impact damage scales at a much higher rate than its blast radius damage with its infected damage increase. Its first unique perk is Contagious Clusters, causing SIVA nanites spawned by this rocket to explode after attaching to a target, dealing a small amount of bonus damage, approximately 30% more damage to the total nanite damage, in a small radius around the target. Its last unique perk is the Corruption Explodes, causing any kill with this rocket launcher to spawn 4 SIVA nanites each. Any nanite spawned by this weapon that is not attached to a target can be attached to the user to gain the SIVA primed warhead damage buff for the next rocket, an increase of 1.5% bonus damage per nanite collected, and the SIVA perfected buff, which for the next 5 seconds grants increased reload speed during that time. SIVA perfected cannot have a duration extended or reset during the time, and the user must wait 4 seconds before being able to reproc SIVA perfected. The SIVA primed warhead stays up until the rocket is fired, regardless if you switch weapons, pull out your ghost, etc. It only resets upon death or firing the rocket. This would be the highest burst DPS option of the bunch, but is mainly usable once stacks of infected have been inflicted upon a boss or high health targets, which takes time. But on its own, it is also a major powerhouse with its ability to spawn nanites in both quantity and damage of nanites. Devil's Disease also has quick launch to increase its already high velocity. It's a 25 round per minute launcher with a high 79 blast radius, 100 velocity, 60 reload speed, the unique magazine of 2 rockets. Devil's Disease does have a complete 8 rounds in its total reserves, showing it can output high DPS for a short period of time and not some extended duration. So yeah, that's the many concepts of SIVA-related exotics for Destiny 2 that I had come up with. From the class-specific exotics to Devil's Disease, all would work hand in hand with one another. Legendaries with the Epidemic Efficiency Intrinsic perk, and Outbreak perfected above them all. These concepts are definitely not tuned or balanced whatsoever to be fitting with the current meta, because where's the fun with making something balanced? I'm glad you made it all the way to the end of the video, and I'd like to see if I should post another concept video I have of a few non-SIVA related exotics. Also, if you care so, post some of your ideas down in the comments, and that'd be pretty cool to see some. Once more, thanks for watching, and good luck, Guardians.